And so, ladies and gentlemen, the entire vitamin supplement industry was created not by scientists, but by marketers. Marketers. And quite frankly, they are the modern day version of the snake oil salesman. You know, when the snake oil salesman first went around, people believed them. They did very well. It was only over the passage of time that people began to appreciate that that snake oil was worthless. As recent as 2002, JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, which is one of the most premier medical peer-reviewed journals in the world, published a paper called Vitamins for Chronic Disease Prevention in Adults, a scientific review. And here's what a quote from that publication. Most people do not consume an optimal amount of all vitamins by diet alone. Pending strong evidence, and note the word pending, strong evidence of effectiveness from randomized trials, so they didn't even have yet any evidence of effectiveness, it appears prudent for all adults to take vitamin supplements. So as recent as 2002, the American Medical Association was advocating that you take multivitamins. And it goes on. The evidence base for tailoring the contents of multivitamins to specific characteristics of patients, such as age, sex, and physical activity, and for testing vitamin levels to guide specific supplementation practices is limited. So even though they didn't know for sure, the general perception was, take a vitamin. Take a vitamin. You know the old thing about vitamins, they're an insurance policy. So just a mere 9 years ago, the American Medical Association, and I want you to notice one of the authors of this paper is a Kathleen Fairfield, and we're going to come back to her in a little bit. Today, a tsunami of research indicates that multivitamins are not good for you. In fact, Dr. Miriam Nelson of Tufts University, who runs the John Hancock Research Center on Physical Activity, Nutrition, and Obesity, says, the multivitamin as insurance policy is an old wives' tale, and we need to debunk it, she says. Let's dig a little bit deeper. What are the essential nutrients? First, let's understand, why do we need this stuff at all? There are, how many essential nutrients do you think there are? Categories. Call out. No. Well, yes, partly. How many categories? All right, let's see. Vitamins are essential. We need vitamins to function. Dietary minerals, we need that. Essential fatty acids. You know, there are 4 types of fats. There are saturated fats, trans fats. Those are the ones you shouldn't touch. There are monosaturated and polysaturated. The monosaturated are like the olive oil or the nuts. The polysaturated are like the omega-3s in fish oil. Essential amino acids. That's why we need protein in our diet, because we need essential amino acids. Water. We need water. Do we need 8 glasses of water? Yes. No. No scientific evidence for 8 glasses of water. Your body has a very good barometer of whether or not you need water. In fact, 2 very good ones. 1, if you're thirsty, and 2, the color of your urine. If it's too yellow, you need water. If it's a nice, yellowish color, you probably don't need water. And finally, oxygen. Okay? So what do we know about vitamins? Well, in ancient Egypt, they knew that people who had night blindness, if you fed them liver, the night blindness went away. And we now know that liver contains vitamin A. So back in ancient Egypt, they knew that you needed vitamin A, but they didn't know what vitamin A is. They just knew that there was something in liver that made night blindness go away. And then we had this gentleman, Dr. James Lynn, a Scottish surgeon, who discovered that in 1749, certain sailors were suffering from scurvy. Okay, they needed citrus fruits, and they used to go on these ships and they wouldn't bring any citrus fruit. So mind you, it wasn't because they hadn't had a citrus fruit in a day or a week We're talking about months and months and months of being on the high seas without any citrus fruit. Of course, you all know who this is. Not. This is Dr. Takaki Kanehiro, who was a British-trained doctor who worked for the Imperial Navy, and he discovered that among the lower shipmates, as opposed to the higher shipmates, the lower shipmates would only eat white rice, while the higher-ranked officers would eat a Western-style diet. They developed something called beriberi. Beriberi, okay? They needed vitamins. And then finally, there was a guy named Yumataro Suzuki, but we don't show his picture because he wrote his study in Japanese, and when it was translated into German, they left out the little part that he actually discovered something. So instead, the guy who reported 2 years later, 99 years ago to be exact, he gets all the credit, and his name is Casimir Funk, okay? Polish gentleman, he reported on the first vitamin. In fact, he named it vitamine, and it had an E at the end back there. And just to give you some examples, B1 you can get from avocados and sunflower seeds. So, where are we meant to get all those essential nutrients, obviously other than the oxygen, even water? Essential vitamins. There are many vitamins, but there are 13. And I simply list them here to show you that some of these names that you sometimes see instead of the actual calling it a vitamin, retinol is vitamin A, vitamin B5 is pantothenic acid, vitamin B12 is cobalamin, vitamin E is called a tocopherol. You just have to familiarize yourself that some of these vitamins have different names. And we need vitamins. We just don't need them out of a bottle, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So where do we get them from? The good stuff in life. The fruits and vegetables and nuts and beans and all the good stuff. That's where we get it from. And why is it important to get it from that? We're going to get to that in a moment. But when they're in their natural state, such as vitamin C, it's an organic nutrient, is ascorbic acid. And vitamin E is a tocopherol. Vitamins are chemically related compounds. Okay. Synthetic vitamins. Linus Pauling said there's no difference between vitamin C, natural, and vitamin C, synthetic. Unfortunately, it's not the only thing that Linus Pauling was wrong about. Linus Pauling also said that if you have a cold, take a lot of vitamin C. Turns out, no science to support it whatsoever. No study has ever substantiated that taking vitamin C decreases the symptoms of a cold. There is a study that shows that if you live in a cold climate and you take vitamin C, or rather naturally, and we'll talk about why it's important to get it naturally, then you can prevent a cold, okay? So even though Linus Pauling said you can take it synthetically, it's not true, and here's why. Because in its natural state, a vitamin is not just a vitamin. It is associated with enzymes, precursors, coenzymes, antioxidants, activators, trace elements, numerous other synergistic compounds that are attached to the organic nutrient while in its natural form. And I want to read you something, if I may. Without these naturally occurring micronutrients, the organic nutrient is rendered unusable by the body. In fact, some scientists feel that the organic nutrient mainly acts to protect all of the other cofactors, allowing them to arrive intact at the cellular level. While we now have a much better understanding of how well whole foods deliver their nutritional benefits, a typical multi contains 10 to 25 isolated nutrients, but fruits and vegetables have hundreds of active compounds with a long list of health properties. The vitamin C in a multivitamin is likely just not as effective as the vitamin C in a citrus fruit, where it's also surrounded by the fiber and flavonoids and carotenoids. All these nutrients working together is what keeps you healthy. Hold on one second. As one researcher put it, to take the organic nutrient alone is equivalent to consuming a banana peel without the banana. Whether or not this latter view of the role the organic nutrients play is entirely accurate, the principle of wholeness stands. Leave out part of the watch and you can't keep time. Another thing, if you look at a bottle and you don't understand half of the ingredients, such as I don't understand half of the ingredients here, and I am an MD, they're probably synthetic chemicals, and they're bad for you, because nobody needs any more synthetic chemicals in their body than we naturally get from the foods we eat, the air we breathe, the ground we walk on, etc. So, what do you do when you walk by those racks of vitamins and supplements from now on?
Forget about it.
Just walk away. And if you see a friend of yours standing by one of those large stacks of vitamins and minerals and all that stuff, what do you say? You say, "Ma'am, step away from the counter." Okay, let's look at a few more studies here because this is where it gets interesting. So far you say, okay, you've been telling us all this stuff. Okay. What's happened since 2002 when the American Medical Association recommended multivitamins? I'm going to review a couple of studies for you. The first, a review of 63 randomized controlled trials. Randomized control means these are the gold standard of studies. It means they had two groups blinded to each other. One group got the product, one group did not get the product, and then they looked at the results. Here's what they found, published by the Agency for Healthcare Research, okay, one of the premier research organizations in the United States. It found that multis did nothing to prevent cancer or heart disease in most populations, the exception being developing countries where they don't have access to fruits and vegetables, etc. In the second paper published last year, scientists at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center followed 160,000 postmenopausal women for about 10 years. The researchers' conclusions: multivitamins failed to prevent cancer, heart disease, and all causes of death for all women. Whether the women were healthy eaters or ate very few fruits and vegetables, the results were the same. Maybe you never expected your multi to prevent cancer or head off a heart attack. Maybe you just felt that taking one would make you healthier by boosting your immunity or your energy level. But research on those benefits is equally discouraging, especially in specialized groups. For instance, a British review of 8 studies found no evidence that multis reduced infections in older adults. Another study found that the vitamins didn't improve fatigue among breast cancer survivors undergoing radiation therapy. And inner-city school children who took a multi did not perform any better on tests or have fewer sick days than those who didn't take one.